Today's session is called Strategically Leveraging Generative AI in Higher Education, as he said. And my name is Ray Besti. I'm a Principal AI Strategist here at Sikich. Been here 36 plus years now. And my history is primarily working with databases, analytics, and the Microsoft Dynamics product line for most of that tenure, with the last several years focusing on AI and generative AI in particular for, as he said, Sikich ourselves internally, as well as for our customers. So welcome everyone that maybe was here last year. This is the second year I've done this, a review of generative AI in the higher education space. So today we're going to kind of review what we talked about last year and what's changed, and hopefully give you some things to work on for the next year. So our agenda here is designed to provide a kind of a comprehensive overview of the current landscape of AI, and really kind of look into the future of what AI can do in the education sector. So we're going to start off and talk about some trends. Last year I gave you about half a dozen trends. We're going to kind of revisit those, see what actually happened with them, and also I'll introduce several new trends that I see in the coming year. And that will include such domains as cybersecurity, marketing, recruitment, student success, and how that all works into what we're trying to do. We'll then move the discussion onto how we can deploy AI solutions, and we'll look at incremental adoption paths, risk management, and addressing resistance to change. And then we'll look at the ethical side of things, ethical considerations and compliance, because that's a big issue always, of course. And we'll conclude with some takeaways for keeping up with all the changes that are happening in AI to help hopefully get you to build an AI-ready campus. Where is the guidance? Where are we getting assistance in trying to guide what we should be doing in AI? Last year we looked at this, and specifically this was for the K through 12, but it kind of applies across all domains, I think. And last year we saw that we only had really 2 states that were providing any kind of guidance. Fast forward to next year, and now we're about half the states are providing some type of guidance for everyone. At the federal level, the U.S. Department of Education deployed an AI toolkit in about October that I believe was called Empowering Education Leaders, a toolkit for the safe, ethical, and equitable AI integration. And that was to kind of guide universities, or really any school, with the benefits and how to manage the associated risk, of course, that come with all this. In April of last year, the NEA also put out a task force report with a proposed policy statement. The whole idea, I think, is that the regulations are changing all over the place, and I did find a website called Teach AI. It's teachai.org, and then /policy-tracker, and the URL will be listed at the end of this presentation. And it kind of gives you a visual map of the whole United States and really the whole world, with links to the policies that have been added to those particular states and countries. And I think it's a good place to kind of keep up on the regs that are changing, because, of course, they are changing all the time. So let's look at the trends that we looked at last year. And again, as I said, we'll add several to the bottom of this list. So the first trend, automation of repetitive tasks, or as I called them last year, was just starting to come out, the term AI agents. And last year was more about co-pilots. Now it's more about agents. Agents. Everywhere you read, everybody's got something they want to tell you about with agents. The whole idea behind this is the automation of repetitive tasks is just that. How do we streamline the processes that we use every day, whether we're managing student applications, or we're processing financial aid forms, or we're just automating our overall payment workflow. So for example, you might have an admission team that can automate tasks like verifying transcript, or maybe financial department can use it to help reconcile accounts and generate routine financial reports. So the whole point of this is to help reduce that menial things that you do, the repetitive things that you do, so that humans can focus more on strategic initiatives and less on doing the busy work. Then we look at AI-powered analytics. So AI can help produce actionable insights into your institutional data. So for example, predictive analytics isn't generative AI, it's just another form of AI that's been around for a lot longer. They can help optimize enrollment strategies by analyzing your old historical data and demographic data. Your finance team can use AI to improve expense tracking potentially, maybe identify budget inefficiencies, and help plan for future needs. The whole point of this is to help increase the accuracy of what you're looking at, and hopefully, again, have people do more of the analysis and high value work as opposed to the extraction and retraction and building of that particular data. We then look at a trend of predictive modeling. So by using predictive modeling, universities can potentially help forecast donor contributions. They can help potentially optimize your fundraising efforts and help predict trends in things like student enrollment and retention. On the financial side, these models can help forecast cash flow, maybe help anticipate maintenance costs, and help align budgets with your overall long-term goals. Again, the whole idea here is same kind of theme. Help you do better financial planning by having some of the menial work get done by AI. Chatbots and virtual systems, that's kind of what started this whole thing two and a half years ago with ChatGPT. The ability to get at that kind of information, whether it's a chatbot that students use or staff uses, and having that information readily available 24/7. That's what this is all about. So you can do things like creating a chatbot to help with tuition payments, or maybe financial aid applications, or even class registration. On the admin side, they can help staff potentially by helping you find data. That's one of the biggest things in companies is you've got all this email, you got all these SharePoint sites, you got all these other data repositories. Where is that file that I worked on 3 months ago? AI is very good at finding that information and bringing it up faster. So on the admin side, beyond the finding things, you can also have it help you schedule meetings or potentially help you notify when deadlines are approaching. The whole point there is improving responsiveness, taking away the operational tedium of finding things so you can get to the tasks that you're actually trying to accomplish. When we look at AI auditing and fraud detection as a potential AI trend, AI is very good at identifying irregularities in financial transactions and really any kind of data, whether it's security, whether it's data that's in your accounting system. So you can use AI to help with compliance with financial regulations, help potentially flag fraud in real time, and even enhance the security of your overall operations. The auditing tools that AI can provide also can help provide a clear audit trail, which is important, and make reporting and accountability that much easier. So those were kind of things that were already happening last year and have moved that much farther and more, I guess, real world and available in a lot of software and a lot of tools. 3 things that I see that are becoming more important or more aware this year are the next 3. The first one being AI and cybersecurity. As all the things we'll talk about today that are great and are helping what we're trying to do in your space, education and other, of course, the other side of the coin is that all the people that do all the bad things have this access to the same exact tools. And so the number of cyber threats is increasing. So having measures in place that utilize AI to help safeguard your academic and financial data becomes that much more important. And luckily, or not luckily, but as part of what AI can do, it can help identify unusual network patterns, network access patterns. It can help prevent phishing and ransomware attacks, and even help automate the updating of your security tools. They also can ensure compliance with data protection regulations and hopefully reduce risk of breaches. This is really one of the areas in AI that is the scariest for a lot of people because, again, I'm not going to be doing that much with AI. Is maybe if that's your mantra right now, others are doing things. And so of all the things, even if you're not seeing the value in other areas, you kind of have to take advantage of this so that we can stay that much, at least one step ahead of the bad guys. In the area of AI marketing, in marketing and recruitment, I think AI can help transform the ability to analyze trends and preferences so that when you try to recruit, you can target your efforts better. You can use demographic information and personal information that you have to really personalize the outreach efforts that you have. And that can help optimize your budgets so that you're pinpointing specifically what works in what area and you're not wasting efforts. And that hopefully will increase overall engagement and overall conversion rates. And then the last one I think is, to me, as far as in the higher education space, is probably the most interesting, and that's the ability to monitor the engagement and performance of students so that you can get alerted earlier when there's a potential problem and you can step in. So maybe it can flag a student at risk based on their attendance in classes or even attendance in other events around the campus. So you can try to uh, predict when there might be an issue and proactively intervene instead of when it's too late. So the top one of those items was about agents, and I'm going to spend a good amount of time now kind of digging into agents because it's an area of interest of mine and it's an area of interest of a lot of people. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, or I'd like to say kind of marketing kind of talk about what these are, agents versus agentic. So even though we talked about a little bit last year, this year I think is going to be the year of agents and the breakout year of agentic AI as well. So let's talk a little bit about that and dig into so we have a good understanding. So the first thing to understand is that not all agents are agentic. So this table I've put together kind of tries to dissect this a little bit so you understand when somebody's saying, hey, you should buy this tool because it's an agentic tool, or somebody's asking you to build something, it's going to have agency, it's going to be agentic. And if you don't understand that, you may be not only overpaying for things, but also expectations might be a little higher than the reality of what's available today. So the first item has to do with the scope of an agent. An agent scope tends to be, an AI agent scope tends to be narrow and domain specific. So that's your chatbot type of thing for customer service, for example. An agentic AI scope will be broader and will cross multiple domains. So think about an adaptive learning system that's tailored to a specific student's needs, or a collaborative agent that assists into various tasks across multiple domains. So instead of just doing one thing where you go to the HR bot or the HR agent and it only knows HR, and then you go to a different agent that knows about grading, and a different agent that knows about learning, you could have one agent that understands all of that and can cross those domains effectively. Now, autonomy is the biggest part of this that, in my mind at least, makes an agent versus being agentic. And when we talk about agency with an AI agent, they tend to be reactive and rules-based. So if this happens, then do this, else do that. So it's very programmatic, and somebody's written code to do something very specific. It's not aware about the overall goal. So when you talk to a chatbot, you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. You ask it another question, it gives you an answer. When you're talking about agentic, you're not so much asking the question, you're asking it about the end result of what you're trying to accomplish. And it proactively may go and call 5 other agents to help solve that problem. And it will direct itself based on the orchestration that's built into that particular agent. So that difference between something being reactive and something proactive is a big part of what makes an agent versus what makes an agentic AI. Then if we look at learning, which is the next category here, an AI agent tends to be limited by its predefined data. You hear this all the time. So-and-so has a model, and that model was trained with something. So there was predefined data. Somebody's gone and fed it all the different ideas, and it has, it's been programmed by that, so it only can do those kind of things. Whereas agentic AI is more about being adaptive and self-improving. And something that's not in this chart that I like to talk about when I talk about these concepts has to do with memory. And if you think about, if you've ever used any of these chatbots that are out there, the first time you go in, it knows nothing about what you've done. You start asking questions, you get back and forth, and it remembers up until its limit on tokens, or until you say start over again. And then it's like, it forgot, and now you start all over again. Agentic AI will have memory and ability to learn and improve as you go on. And I think that's one of the hurdles of truly agentic systems right now, is how do I take the memory it's in my head and everything I've ever touched, seen, or done, and put that into a model so it knows about me and my history, and each person has that ability to do that, and where is it going to be stored and how do we secure it and all those kind of things. That's one of the hurdles. But to me, that's a big part of something being agentic versus just being an AI agent. The next category here has to do with decision making. An AI agent, I kind of alluded to this already, is more about program logic. So a conversational agent that maybe provides domain-specific guidance on predefined rules that somebody has coded. Whereas agentic AI is more about making independent, context-aware decisions, such as a collaborative agent that co-authors a report with you and maybe strategizes fundraising campaigns and contributes ideas and adjusts its approach based on interacting with you as the human. This area of decision making, you may have seen some products that have recently been released from Anthropic, and then OpenAI just came out with their product. I forget what they call it this last week. And Microsoft has a product called Magentic One that uses these agency kind of concepts. The ones from Anthropic and from OpenAI allow you to have an agent look at a screen, and without programming what to do, it understands how to click through websites, potentially drill into 5 or 10 different websites, and come back with answers based on what it sees on the screen. That intelligent automation, which is another whole other category of this, is also part of this direction that agentic AI. And you can imagine using that in a system where it understands your financial system. You kind of give it an end result. It knows how to navigate through the system, add records, make changes, and come back without having to ever program it to do that. That's a big part of where agentic AI also, I believe, is going. And the last category we'll discuss here, as far as the differences, has to do with ethical reasoning. AI agents don't really tend to have that unless it's been hard-coded or programmed in it. So, for example, a learning assistant, maybe that suggests resource for your professional development, probably won't consider the ethical side of any of that. Whereas an agentic AI, we will use ethical reasoning as a key part of what it does, and it would an ethical and strategic agent might navigate compliance issues and simulate the impact. For example, if you were going to increase tuition, what would that do to student retention, and potentially recommend a more balanced approach as opposed to a yes or no or just branching based off the rules. So this whole point of this was to kind of give you some guidance in how to detect whether somebody is talking truly of an AI agent or agentic AI. What I'm going to do now is we're going to drill into each of these and talk about the categories of AI agents, and then we'll talk about the categories of agentic AI. So there are 4 different categories for AI agents that I see happening right now already and moving forward in the future, in the next year or so. So the first one we're going to look at is called process automation agents. So I think these are going to really drive 2025. They specialize in executing those repetitive, predefined tasks like payroll processing, invoice generation, and screening applications. So an example of that might be a financial aid agent that handles document verification for loan eligibility. The whole point of that would be to streamline that approval process and minimize the amount of manual intervention that you would have to have. An insight generation agent, the second category here, are more focused on analytics and reporting. They could be used to analyze financial or operational data. They could provide dashboards and recommendations. So an example might be an agent that would suggest reallocation of budgetary resources based on spending trends, and then alert you so that you can potentially make changes and be aware of those financial inefficiencies. So processing automation agents as the first one, insight generation agents is the second one, and the last 2 here, conversational agents or your enhanced chatbot. So we've talked about a chatbot. I ask a question, I get a response. So I think what you're going to see moving forward is the ability to understand larger numbers of multi-turn conversations. So the amount of memory that a chatbot has is controlled by the number of tokens that it can take in, a number of tokens it can spit back out. So as those token limits get larger, it can handle more complex multi-turn conversations. With integration, you can have it pull from other systems and keep context of what it's trying to do, so you get that domain-specific guidance. So an example of that might be taking a chatbot to the next level and handling those more complex queries about tuition calculations, or even providing detailed steps about a grant application. Again, the whole point of those is to reduce the amount of human intervention that has to happen until the final decision needs to be made, so that you can scale and handle more transactions with less people. Learning assistant, again, I think this is where this will change the whole way that we're all taught things from kindergarten on up, but especially in higher education. The ability of an agent to be able to curate a very specific learning path by the individual needs of a person or a professional, whether you're doing it for yourself, for professional growth, or for a student. Think about administrative teams having an agent that can suggest certifications or training based on your stated career trajectory. So those four are things that are happening right now, and are going to increasingly happen in the next year. And they're all around agents. So they're programmed if this then else kind of thing. The capacity is increasing, so they'll be able to do more, but they're not really agentic in any way, because somebody had to go in and say, okay, these are the different types of careers. These are the different types of learning paths. If they say this, then go this way. If they say that, then go that way. So it's still programmed in those ways. So then we move to the future. Some of this is happening today, and I think 2025, towards the end of this year, we're going to see big improvements. And then I see this next 3 to 5 years is where we're really going to start to see big changes. So I have 5 of these that I want to talk about. The first one is autonomous decision-making agents. So these go beyond those predefined tasks and recommendations, and they independently assess the situation and then take appropriate action. For example, in an accounting environment, they might detect a budgetary issue and then automatically reallocate funds, or at least suggest before they do that, so that a human can get in and be in the loop and make that final decision, notify the user, and then actually go and make the corrective action without the user having to figure out where to go to do that. An adaptive learning agent, instead of just producing a list of resources, these agents could adapt in real time to the user's needs. So everybody has a certain way they like to learn. They like to hear, they like to see pictures, they like to touch things, or have a combination. So being able to learn how each individual learns best and adapt the kind of resources that are provided, that's the kind of thing that I think this would be able to accomplish. And a finance-focused agent might be able to do the same kind of thing in financial projections, basing them not only just on historical data, but also going externally and looking at external indicators. The economy is going a certain direction, or government agencies are making regulations a certain way that's going to affect things and adjusting accordingly. Then we have collaborative agents. These are, we heard the term co-pilot all the time, and it's kind of taking that to its true sense and having a true guide that's always with you and collaborating with you on everything that you're trying to do. So you think about, you need to create a report, having somebody you can ask questions and get answers, to strategize things like fundraising campaigns, or to contribute ideas and approaches to how you're trying to do something with your team, and always having that collaborative person that understands how you work, how you think, what you're involved with, all the projects you're working on, and can then suggest and make sure you're made aware of those other things, so that you don't stay in the little silo you're working in at that particular time. So having kind of that buddy that's always there, that understands everything that's going on and can interject when asked to assist you in what you're doing. That collaborative agent, I think, is going to be a key thing to that memory that I talked about earlier, and that awareness of all the things that affect what you're trying to accomplish. And that's kind of what I just described as, it's loosely the same as a cross-domain generalist. So we talk about generative AI all the time. We've defined those terms. Another type of AI is called AGI, artificial general intelligence, meaning that instead of just being able to understand the domain I'm working on, it's having similar cognitive abilities as a human being. So a cross domain generalist would allow you to have an agent that could work across multiple domains. So it could handle admissions and financial planning and alumni relations all in one agent instead of having to go to each of those individual agents and have to transfer data between them. That ability to do that is going to change a lot of how we accomplish things. And then the fifth item is these ethical and strategic agents, the ability to include an ethical reasoning component in what we're doing to make sure you can navigate compliance issues, any ethical dilemmas, and overall map to your strategic long-term goals. So for instance, they might be able to simulate, as I mentioned this idea before, the idea of a tuition increase and what would that do to retention, and again, recommend some type of balanced solution. This is the one that I think makes people the most nervous because ethical dilemma is based off of the perception and the history of each individual institution or even individual person. What is right, what is wrong, who determines that? That's a big part of where this is all going, and we all need to figure out. Okay, so let's move on to the last three items and that I'm kind of introducing this year. AI we'll start off with AI and cybersecurity first and the application side of this. As I stated before, just as we're all trying really hard to take advantage of AI in areas like cybersecurity to find things, all the bad guys are of course doing things to try to circumvent that. So they're attacking the financial, academic, and personal data that is housed in universities and everywhere. And of course, the university has wide array of networks and a very diverse user base. So being able to do this is not only important to protect that information, that there's all kinds of compliance you got to follow, and we got to find ways to protect that infrastructure. So the first one here, threat detection prevention applications. AI is very good at analyzing things like network traffic patterns, detecting anomalies, and flagging potential threats like phishing. It's been around for a long time. Ransomware and even denial of service type attacks. You can do that in real time as opposed to after the fact. Automated incident response. AI-powered systems can help contain the threats that happen by isolating effective systems. They can neutralize things like malware and even restore backups, restore your data from backups. Then you've got tools that are around the vulnerability type of management, and they can help assess and prioritize security risks and patch critical systems and even get timely updates by doing that. We have things like behavioral analytics can help identify unusual behaviors, so as unauthorized access attempts, irregular file downloads, or detect insider threats or compromised accounts. I think statistically, when you look at the type of things that happen, most of the things that actually cause the biggest harm aren't necessarily the bad guys. It's internal type of things and accidental or on purpose insider threats. So be able to detect that behaviorally, those tools are good at that. Then you have secure access and authentication. Traditional things we're used to. Making sure you use behavioral biometrics or adaptive authentication. And the whole bottom line, of course, making sure only the people that are authorized can actually gain access. So AI and cybersecurity and tools or applications is, I think, a big thing you're going to see more and more as this year goes on and into the future. Now, with this, we have challenges, of course. Sometimes, especially with generative AI, it's not a 100% always accurate type of tool. And so if it misclassifies things and it's a benign activity but identified as a threat, then you're going to potentially lock things down that didn't need to be locked down. And more importantly, I think you're going to lose trust in the system. And so people stop, it's kind of crying wolf too many times kind of situation. You have also evolving threats. As fast as we're trying to build tools, the bad guys are building tools to try to break the tools. So, they're launching all kinds of sophisticated attacks. And so we got to constantly keep up on that and keep advancing our defense systems. And then resource intensity. This stuff isn't free. It costs a lot of money. It sometimes requires specialized skills, and that can obviously strain your budget. In the future, as far as cybersecurity, the emergence of predictive security, be able to predict an attack before it actually occurs. So by looking at historical data and current trends in the industry, I think that'll help the overall readiness of our defenses. Integration with agentic AI to be able to autonomously adapt to these new threats and update the algorithms and tools that are being used, help develop strategies, and then take an action before a human even gets involved. It happens at 3 in the morning, you got to beep the guy who comes in and deals with it. Now the agent actually can take care of that. And then we have collaborative threat intelligence. Institutions can share anonymized data with other institutions so that across platforms, so that they enable a more broad and effective detection network, because you're sharing that kind of information. So that kind of thing, I think, is going to increase as well. Very good. Let's move on to our second new look at things for the future, and that is AI in marketing and recruitment. So I think being able to use AI to help identify and better target individuals based off demographics is going to just get that much better. It's been used, obviously, if you ever spoke out loud and you happen to have your Amazon or Google listener around, and then suddenly an ad shows up on what you were just talking about and you never even tried to search on it. Those kind of things is that kind of identity. But you have obviously information that you have available about individuals. And so instead of this broad blanket of information going out, being able to target that, is this going to make things better? You're going to be able to analyze the data you already have and market trends. And these tools can help predict enrollment patterns and personal outreach to your prospective students. And obviously, they can also help with the allocation of the limited budgets you already have, so that you focus in where the channels and strategies work best for better ROI. So that's the 3 categories here: personalized campaigns, customizing your messaging and materials based on the interests of your students and their preferences, channel optimization. So is it social media, is it email, is it which platform do you want to use so you can maximize your reach? And then analytics, be able to track the performance and refine your future efforts so that you focus the money where it is most successful. And a final trend here is AI and student success. So being able to monitor the academic progress, engagement, or lack thereof, and overall well-being of students. Students that can provide or systems that can provide early alerts, and for at-risk students, maybe suggest tailored interventions, and even support your academic advisors with these insights. By analyzing things like attendance and grades and overall participation in the institution. Hopefully, they can be more proactive with their response and help with these challenges, and hopefully improve retention. So you have early warning systems that can flag students showing any sign of disengagement or if they're struggling academically. You have personalized learning paths, so they can recommend courses, overall resources, or even tutoring to help students that need that. And then you have wellness and support, which has become, unfortunately, especially after COVID, integrating mental health resources and suggesting interventions to help with overall well-being. I think these tools can help with that as well. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the process to getting started with implementing something, because that's one of the challenges with all this is all these things. I've given you all these trends and all these potentials. I only have so many hours in a day. I've only got so much money. I've got to determine which has the highest ROI and what things are actually achievable with today's technology, knowing that if I blink, it's going to change tomorrow. So how do I do that? So I got 4 kind of broad categories we'll drill down into the next several slides here. The first one being incremental adoption path. So it's important to, integrate gradually and allow the overall institution to adapt to what you're doing and refine your process over time. You've got risk management. You got to identify all the potential negatives as well as the positive, and make sure you develop any strategies to mitigate those issues to make sure you have a successful implementation. Resistance to change. I've talked about this. Had a meeting this morning. Even on the technical side, some people do what they do and they like what they do, even if it may not be the most efficient. And so you're going to get people that are resistant to this. They don't trust it. They don't think it's fair, or whatever the reason is. So the people paying the bills might be hesitant. So you got to have clear communication what it is and what it isn't, which is why I spent so much time about agents versus agentic. And make sure you train people so they understand how to use these tools so you have a smoother transition. And then finally, AI governance. It's not last, it just lasts on the list. You got to make sure that the ethical standards and compliance issues are taken care of throughout the whole process. So let's dig into each of these four so we understand them a little better. So incremental adoption path. So phase one of this is identify opportunities. There's going to be all kinds of things we talked about in our poll. The process automation is the number one thing that people think is right now kind of low-hanging fruit. You have to identify that low-hanging fruit. A lot of people at the top don't necessarily know what the people at the bottom or in the middle are actually doing every day. They make a request, and then 3 days later to get an answer. They don't understand the running around that's going on to get there. So you need to make sure you pinpoint where the inefficiencies are and identify those repetitive tasks that could be automated, and things such as data aggregation and invoice processing and the finance side, and then collaborate with the people that the stakeholders that make the decisions so that you can prioritize areas with the highest potential for improvement. So that's phase one, identify the opportunities. The second phase is then do a manageable pilot project to test that whether this is going to make a difference. Because sometimes things are done because, wow, that would really be cool. Then at the end, it's like, yeah, okay, so what? It didn't move the needle anywhere, so why did we do that? So making sure that you take something that's manageable and achievable, such as deploying a chatbot for financial aid inquiries, as an example. Evaluate the overall success through metrics like how quickly did you get a response, what's the user satisfaction, and what percentage of errors, did it give the right answer or not? And then use feedback in a loop to kind of refine that approach. Phase three would be then, once you've developed a proof of concept that seems like it's good, then you got to come up with a long-term strategy to scale the project up so it can handle all the students or parents or whatever the output people are that are going to use your particular solution. You need to potentially integrate this into other systems in your system. You maybe have a predictive analytics tool that you build that works for budgeting or tuition forecasting, so you got to integrate it to those systems. And so you need to create a change management plan that supports the adoption and the continuous monitoring and adjustment to further optimize this as time goes on. So incremental adoption path is our first step. Then we talked about risk management. So data security is important, of course. You need to make sure all those things we talked about, cybersecurity, you got to make sure you implement those security protocols such as encryption and multi-factor authentication and access control. Those are things that you're doing anyway with all your other systems. You want to make sure you don't forget about that, because the AI system might be getting to data that the user's not directly typing in to get to, but the AI system's getting to it, so you need to make sure those security protocols are in place. You got to constantly review this and update to make sure you stay ahead of those emerging threats, and then make sure you train your staff on the best practice for handling sensitive data like financial data. You have the ethical side of things, the ethical risk. It's recommended that you establish an ethics committee to oversee these deployments, make sure they're fair, they're transparent, they're inclusive. Conduct regular audits on the algorithms that are being used to make sure that you detect any disparities in their processing of decisions, as well as their fairness, transparency, inclusivity. And then you have operational risks. Make sure you are prepared for anything that is unexpected and develop a detailed contingency plan. It may even include things like reverting to manual process if you need to take the system down and you replace the old system that used to be there. Make sure you address any errors that AI may generate, because again, it's not always 100% accurate. and make sure you emphasize the human in the loop concept that I'm sure you've heard when you talk about AI, especially when you're doing things like financial operations. Having it suggest something and changing your budget is very good. Having it actually get to the point of making that change without a human in the loop, probably we're not there yet. You'd want to assess that and then push that final button before you actually make that change. And then, of course, we have addressing the resistance to change. So that can be mitigated by staff training, organize regular workshops, hands-on training to make sure you train people specific to their role, because different people do different things and they'll use the tools differently. Make sure you highlight examples where it's helping their individual tasks with very specific details so that they can understand and get immediate use. Highlight the benefits, use concrete examples to make sure that they understand, share testimonials across team members and across the institutions so that people kind of get that aha moment of, oh, I can see I do something just like that. Now I see it and I'll be more likely to use it. And obviously get leaders to buy in. Create presentations that point out things that they like ROI projections, risk mitigation strategies, and case studies of other organizations that are doing things. Make sure they're involved with the overall strategy so they can align what you're doing with their overall goals and the plans and so you can gain support. And then AI governance. Make sure you have policies that a framework around how you're going to use AI for ethical use. Make sure you have an acceptable use policy. I think we mentioned here somewhere. You make sure you follow regulations like FERPA, which is the Federal Family Educational Right and Privacy Act. Make sure you GDPR, and there's all kinds of other regulations. You got to make sure you keep up on that and regular review and make sure that what you're building follows those guidelines. We talked about human oversight or human in the loop. Make sure humans understand what's being done, monitor the output, and make sure there's protocols for escalating a decision that needs a human so that you don't end up becoming a bottleneck in the whole process, especially in things like financial aid, which would have you don't necessarily want a computer doing that blindly. You have compliance. You want to make sure you have periodic audits to make sure that they align with your internal policies as well as external regulations. Document decision-making processes so that what you don't want is a black box where you send a request, it comes back, and you don't want, well, I'm not sure how it came to that answer. You want to make sure you document so you have an understanding. You can audit that when people want to know those answers, and make sure you have training sessions on your overall government practice so that relevant staff understand and have the same answer to the same kind of question. And then stakeholder engagement, make sure that you have diverse stakeholders involved in what you're doing. So that's the IT guys, that's finance, that's legal, even students. Make sure they're all involved in the process so everybody understands the framework and can understand and adjust based on their perspective and needs. So let's take a minute here as we're getting here towards the end and look at what some other institutions are doing. So at LATAM Global Education, they partnered with something called Hippocratic AI to enhance healthcare education by blending nursing experience with AI. So they introduced a AI-powered tutor called Julian that was recently showcased at the Google Cloud Next conference. And the idea is there to equip healthcare professionals with overall AI skills and be able to use this chatbot to ask questions and get useful answers. Adelaide University is actually changing all the curriculum starting this year to have all students required to learn AI and data technologies. Excuse me. So the idea there is to make sure that every degree from accounting to conservation is taught about AI and data technologies so that they're ready for the future. Georgia State has built an AI chatbot they call Pounce to engage students to answer questions 24/7. And the whole idea there is to improve communication between students and the university by providing 24/7 access to common information. And then Brainly has built a learning platform using Google's Vision AI, kind of like we talked about a minute ago, with the ability to be able to have a system and navigate with intelligent automation. But this one is a little simpler. instead of typing in a question, you just take a snapshot of whatever the question is. It uses vision to identify that and then return back a result. I did something very similar just personally with my mother, with a medical document, and be able to do that and have it come back and simply return a simple answer. That technology very simple to deploy with the different vision AI tools that are out there. And these are just some examples of what some institutions are currently doing with AI. So what is the future of all of this in education? So I think these 5 items here: agentic AI in financial operations. I think beyond the basic automation that we're seeing now, we're going to see autonomous decision-making systems. So if you can imagine a financial aid agent not only detecting anomalies in a student application, but autonomously reallocating funds to an area with greater need, or notifying administrators, of course, before that change. These systems could enhance efficiency and equity in overall operations. Then you have personalized and adaptive learning systems. That, I think, like I said earlier, the way we learn is forever changed. I think these tools being able to adjust in real time to an individual's best way they like to learn, continuously learning from their behavior, providing this tailored content and guidance, and doing things such as creating an entire custom curricula for a student based on their career goal and academic progress. And as we know, I don't know what the percentages is of students who start with this degree and as a freshman, and when they come out, they have the same degree. That's changing all the time as people discover new things that they like. So having a system that can adjust real time with that, so they don't have to go to the 5th and 6th year to graduate because they were able to do that in a more timely manner, that's an interesting direction, I think. If you look at that, the third one here, collaborative AI agents, shifting from being a tool to becoming more of that partner, that person, or that AI standing next to you all the time and working alongside you as an educator or an administrator or even a student, providing those insights, contributing ideas, learning your preferences so that you can co-create solutions. And I think it's just going to streamline the complexity of what we do in tasks like strategic planning and even things that cross multiple departments. You then have ethical and strategic AI systems. I think as institutions start to rely more on AI, ethical design is going to become kind of the center of all this. They need to be capable, these AI systems, of simulating the impact of a decision. So it such as a tuition increase, on how it may affect student retention. I think they can recommend a more balanced long-term strategy that can align with institutional goals and student welfare. But it's that whole concept of defining what is right, what is wrong, it has to be part of this in order for AI to be widely adopted and trusted. Then the 5th one, cross-domain generalist AI. As it become more versatile, the ability to manage a lot of different things across a lot of different areas. You can imagine a system that, as I've mentioned earlier, that works in admissions and talks about the financial side of things all the way after they graduate, in alumni relations, having one system that can handle all that. Kind of eliminates the whether it's higher education or it's business, all the silos that we have in companies right now, where each one kind of does their own thing. We try to communicate by having something that can kind of cross that and eliminate those silos is going to, I think, help operations and overall coordination of and deliver a more consistent result. So I think in higher education, AI, by embracing these innovations, it's not only going to address current challenges that we have, but also help prepare for an AI-driven world. From empowering students through personalized learning to streamlining financial operations, agentic systems, and the future of AI in higher education is a future of growth, equity, and opportunity. So let's finish off our last slide here. Key takeaways, hopefully, for today is, data. We didn't talk too much about data. We've talked about that in a lot of other places. AI lives, that's its food. It needs good data in order to work. So you got to prioritize high quality, accessible, diverse data, because that's really the foundation of all of this. Start smart. Don't try to solve all the problems at once. Don't pick the most complicated, most integrated to 300 different system as your first AI system, because then it's going to take too long, and money and all the rest. You're not going to get that pop that you need. So start small. Find something that has value but is achievable in a short amount of time, and then adjust from there. Policies. Make sure that you have a good acceptable use policy that highlights ethical use, security, and transparency. Foster innovation, empower your staff, your faculty, students to experiment responsibly, with hands-on adoption. Collaborate with success, make sure that you create channels cross-departmentally and even across other institutions. Find out what's working, find out what's not working, share with that. You do that already with a lot of things. This is no different. And prepare for the future. Make sure that students are given the skills and understanding of this, so that when they come out, they're going to be in an AI world. And so, I think part of the education system is to prepare them to do that as well as they can. So I think that's what we have. The last slide after this, we'll have the link to that policy tracking website I mentioned earlier. But at this time, we'll open up any questions that you might have.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ray. Certainly, folks, if you do have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and submit those. We'll give you a few moments here to get any questions in. Wealth of information on this, Ray. Thank you for taking the time out to speak to the forum as part of this. I think it's always I'm always fascinated just hearing about the developments and what direction things are going on that. So appreciate your willingness to share your expertise with our attendees as part of this. And I think as I think about it, just personally on some of these things, one of the biggest barriers is just, where do I start? Where do I even kind of begin that process there? Do you have any insights in terms of someone saying, hey, this all sounds great, I would love to be able to leverage some of these things that are out there, but what's step one in kind of going down that process?
Well, step one, I think just kind of taking a little lens into what Sikich does and what where we are in our process, and in some of the experiences I've had with people this here inside of our own company. It for the first step is understanding the baseline of what it is and what it isn't, so that you don't have higher expectations of what it can do today, because marketing, they always have perfect data and it shows, and then you try to do it yourself, it doesn't do the same thing. So that's important. And then it's just looking at what you do every day. Identify the things that you do a lot of that you really don't want to be doing, but has to get done, that causes the most angst of, I can't find that email, I can't find this, or we were talking with a bunch of auditors that were doing some things, and the way they were trying to figure out the census data and all the rest, it took them hours and hours to do that. And so you start thinking, there's got to be a better way. So let's look at that and see, is there a way to have AI understand what I'm doing and do it in a better way, and start with that small use case. And sometimes you're going to find out, like in that particular instance, we found out there's other tools. But a lot of times what I see is that people get stuck in their old habits and they don't even think that there's another way. So it's just try to find the most painful thing that you do every day and just reevaluate that. Even if the end result isn't an AI solution, you'll probably find that maybe there's another way of doing that same kind of thing in a better way. And so I think AI, having that as a potential tool in your tool belt, at least starts the whole process of thinking about what you do. And a lot of times we don't ever come out of the fog to step back and think about what we do every day to see if there's a better way.
Oh, very good. All right. Well, with that, everyone, Ray, again, thank you. We did have one question here. We'll see if I can get this. See here, a question is, assuming AI is managed by the IT team, should there be a new team created for AI management, or is it typically added to system admin teams or developer team? Any kind of what you've seen
I,
on that, Ray, or any
I
insights?
think it's part of the existing IT teams because they're the ones who have the keys to the kingdom and everything. But having someone that specializes in understanding this, that's how my role evolved here. We have an internal IT team, we have a CIO, but he's busy dealing with all the other things. And so I focus on the AI side of it as kind of the AI strategist, and I work with the CIO and and all the other teams to help make things because they can't add this. There's enough of this to everything else they need to understand. To add this on top of it, they're going to miss something. So I think it's that team is still there, and you work in conjunction with somebody that can focus on the AI side of it. Is the way how we
Excellent.
do it, and I see a lot of customers doing that as well.
Excellent.